It's time to create a page for editing the plugin options. To perform this task, we need to use a function called Add Menu Page. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to learn more about this function. We have quite a few options for this function. Scroll down to the User Contributor section. You'll see the User Contributor note suggests that we should use a hook called Admin Menu and then use this function from within that hook. So let's do that. Inside the main plugin file, add this action, and the function we want to call is our admin menus. I want you to take note that we're not running this hook inside the admin init function. In the resource section of this lecture, I provide a link to this hook. If you read the notes, WordPress will state the following. This action mustn't be placed in an admin init action function, because the admin init action is called after admin menu. It's always good practice to read the notes for any hook or function before using it for clarification on usage. Moving on, inside the include/admin folder, let's create a file called menus.php. Lastly, include this file. Inside this file, create the radmin menus function. Now we can call the Add Menu Page function. This function has quite a few parameters. The first parameter is the title of this page. This will appear on the top of the browser in tabs. I'm going to pass in the text Recipe Options. The second parameter is the name that will appear in the sidebar. I'm going to keep this simple and pass in Recipe Options. The third parameter is the capability. We haven't talked about capabilities yet. In the resource section, I provide a link to the capabilities codex page. A capability is basically what a user can or can't do. By default, WordPress provides 6 default roles, which are super admin, administrator, editor, author, contributor, and subscriber. Each of these roles have certain capabilities. Let's scroll down to the Capability versus Role table section of this page. As you can see, a super admin can do everything, whereas a subscriber can only read posts and pages. You can think of roles as a way to group capabilities. When you are checking if a user can perform a certain action, then you'll want to check their capability. It's important that you check their capabilities rather than checking their role. There are plugins out there that allow you to create new roles and assign custom capabilities. Those same plugins can also modify existing capabilities for roles. So it's always important to check a capability rather than a role. This function would like to know who can view this page by passing in a capability. Currently, I only want super admin and administrators to view this page. If we look at the table, we can use any of these capabilities that only a super admin or administrator can do. I'm going to use the Capability Edit Theme options. You don't have to use this specific capability. You can use any of the other ones just as long as they apply to both super admins and administrators. The fourth parameter is the menu slug. This is basically the URL. I'll show you what this looks like in just a moment. This should be a unique URL. Do you know what we do when we want something to be unique in WordPress? We prefix it with r underscore. I'm going to pass in r plugin opts. The fifth parameter is the name of the function that will be called. We're going to call this function r plugin opts page. This function doesn't exist, so let's create that now. Inside the admin folder, create a file called options-page.php. Next, include this file from the main plugin file. Lastly, let's define the function. Whatever you output from this function will be outputted onto the page. We can, if we want to, use WordPress's stylings and classes to style this page. However, we won't. Instead, we'll be using Bootstrap. First things first, let's try outputting something onto our page. There is one special class that we will use, and that's called the wrap class. This class is created by WordPress. This is just one of the very few classes that WordPress provides that we can use. This class will take care of placing our page to the right of the menu and make it responsive. Let's output a simple message. Now, go to your WordPress admin dashboard and you'll notice our menu pop up. Click on it. You'll see the message outputted and positioned correctly. One last thing. Earlier I told you about the slug. Inside the URL bar, you'll see the slug we passed in. In order to access this page, all we have to do is use the page query and use the value rPluginOpts. That should bring us to this page. That's how our slug works. Now that the page is being displayed, let's start creating the forms and adding some styles. We'll be using Bootstrap styling for this. It's not required, but I prefer it. To begin, we'll need to load the Bootstrap CSS. WordPress has a specific hook for loading styles and scripts on the admin side. Inside the admin init function, add the action hook called admin enqueue scripts. The function we'll want to call is radmin_enqueue. WordPress has quite a few hooks for enqueuing files in different locations. We have one for the front end, one for the admin end, and two for Gutenberg. Anyway, let's create a file inside the admin folder called enqueue.php and define the function there. Before we enqueue any files, I want to make sure we only load Bootstrap in our custom page. It's irresponsible to load Bootstrap for every admin page. We'll want to make sure the files only get loaded for the admin options page we created. Luckily, that's easy to do using the page query we saw earlier. Inside a conditional statement, I'm going to check if that query argument is not set and its value is not rPluginOpts. If either of these conditions return true, then we'll want to return nothing. This will mean that the page the user is currently on is not our plugins page, and so we shouldn't do anything else. If the user makes it this far, then we'll enqueue the Bootstrap style sheet. We don't need the JS. The CSS file is inside the assets/css/bootstrap.css that is relative to the recipe plugin file. Let's refresh the admin page. If we get no errors in our console related to the files we enqueued, then we're good to go. It's time to create a form. Inside the options page, I'm going to paste in some markup. This form has nothing unique to WordPress. This is all Bootstrap markup to make it look pretty. You can find this markup inside the /assets/extras/options-page.txt file. Let's go over what's going on. As you can see, I've created a form input for the two options we created earlier in the activation function. I've also made all text translatable using the _e function. One important thing I want you to note is the name attribute for each input. As you can see, I prefix everything with r_. This is to prevent any collisions with any other data WordPress sends out when we submit this form. So how do we get the form to submit correctly? Well, it's pretty simple. In the form tag, I'm going to set the method to post. The action will be set to admin-post.php. This is very important. Whenever you create forms, this is the URL you should submit your info to. To be more specific, forms on the admin side of WordPress. Actually, you can find this file inside the wp-admin folder. Open this file. If you take a look at this comment, you'll notice it says, intended for form submission handling in themes and plugins. It's safe to assume that we can send our data to this file. There are a couple of things we need to do before this form is fully functional. We face two problems. We're not the only ones who will be posting data to the admin-post.php file. We need to make WordPress aware that we're the ones submitting the form and execute the appropriate functions. The second problem is XSS injections. This form can be easily recreated and submitted without our permission. The answer to both these problems are simple and taken care of by WordPress. First, create an input field that should be hidden. Its name should be Action. WordPress will search for this field and check its value. The value of this field will determine what function will be used to save this data. I'm going to set the value attribute to rSaveOptions. You'll see what this does in a moment. Next, we need to make our form secure from XSS attacks. WordPress recommends we create a field with a unique key that is generated when we visit this page. We can then validate this key during submission. We already know how to handle something like this. We can use the WP nonce field function like before. Call this function and pass in rOptionsVerify. I'm not going to deal with the other parameters because we're outputting this onto the screen rather than returning it, so I'm not so concerned with the other values. Let's refresh the admin page. You should see this field being generated by WordPress. After confirming this, we can now submit and update our settings.